As sports fans, one of our favorite things to do is look at the next generation of superstars and start speculating about how good they could be, and oftentimes start to compare them to the superstars already dominating the game. Over the years in hockey, we have done this countless times, with phenoms like Mario Lemieux, Sidney Crosby, and Eric Lindros, and we're also seeing it right now with Connor Bedard. These players start getting talked about at an extremely early age, sometimes before they're even 9 or 10 years old, which can certainly put a ton of pressure on these kids and make it really difficult for the player to stay focused and try and tune out all the noise. But this is just the reality of how we are and how athletes are looked at in our society. This makes it even more impressive when a hyped up prospect can meet our expectations, even exceed them at times, and very much live up to the insane hype we put on them. Connor McDavid is currently the very best hockey player in the world and could go down as one of the best offensive producers of all time. The 25-year-old Edmonton Oiler is in his 8th NHL season and already has 5 100-point seasons, 4 Art Ross trophies, 2 Hart trophies, and 3 Ted Lindsays. He's also in the middle of his best season yet, currently on pace for over 60 goals and nearly 150 points, a mark that hasn't been hit in 27 years when Mario Lemieux had 161 points during the 1995-96 season. While McDavid was one of the most hyped prospects in NHL history, and many people obviously thought he would be a superstar, there was no guarantee. And along with Sidney Crosby, Connor McDavid has met and exceeded his insane expectations like only a handful of players in NHL history have. From a very young age, Connor McDavid knew he was very different from his teammates and from a lot of the other kids his age. He was hyper-focused on the game of hockey from the ages of 6 to 8, according to his parents, and was not thinking the same way as a lot of other kids. Connor knew exactly what he wanted to do and clearly had the skills to be on the right track to becoming a pro hockey player in the NHL. A few years later, and after dominating minor hockey, he would be granted exceptional player status into the Ontario Hockey League as a 15-year-old and will be drafted by the Erie Otters first overall in 2012. During his time with the Otters, McDavid would get better and better each of his 3 years there, and by his final season, he would become CHL Player of the Year and had a ridiculous 44 goals and 120 points in just 47 games. His 2.55 points per game average was miles better than any of his competitors, and one of the highest by a U18 player in the CHL since Sidney Crosby, who had a 2.71 point per game for Rimouski in the 04-05 season. McDavid in his draft year was must-see TV for any hockey fan, and it was becoming clear that he could very well be the next big thing for the National Hockey League. The McDavid hype even got to the point where NHL stars were talking about how good the kid is and was going to be. 2015, and then 25-year-old Steven Stamkos, who to that point had already had a 50 and 60 goal season and was one of the top 10 players in the league, said, quote, "I think he's better than me right now. I wouldn't have a second thought when saying that." And he also added that McDavid was, quote, "the best I've seen for a player that age." Connor McDavid would go on to be drafted number 1 overall in the 2015 entry draft, one of the strongest drafts in recent memory. And while a big injury held McDavid to just 45 games in his rookie season, he still would put up 48 points and had some moments that showed he was already one of the best in the game. The next 3 seasons, McDavid would win 2 of 3 scoring titles and tally at least 100 points each year. In 2019-20, he would have another very strong year, finishing second in scoring to only his teammate Leon Draisaitl, who had a ridiculous 110 points in 71 games. That regular season was cut short due to the pandemic, but McDavid continued to be one of the most dangerous players in the world. Each of the past 3 seasons, Connor McDavid has continued to outdo himself. In the shortened 56-game season, he somehow still managed to put up 105 points, 21 more than the next best Draisaitl, and 36 more than the third place Brad Marchand. Last season, he managed to smash his career high points total and put up 123 points in 80 games. And this year, McDavid is putting together a year that could be his best yet, on pace right now for over 60 goals and 150 points. At just 25, soon to be 26, Connor McDavid has already racked up just about all the individual awards he could ever want. But the one thing he's currently lacking compared to some of the other superstars that came before him, like Mario Lemieux, Wayne Gretzky, and Sidney Crosby, is the playoff success and Stanley Cup victories. During his time with Edmonton, the Oilers have made the playoffs in 4 of the 7 seasons, but they've only made it out of the first round twice, and the furthest they have gotten was their trip to the Western Conference Final last year versus Colorado. It's no secret that the Oilers have not always had the most complete team around McDavid and Draisaitl, and although the team is certainly better now, they're still not close to perfect. Nonetheless, Connor McDavid is doing everything in his power to try and will that franchise back to the Stanley Cup, and he and Leon's performances last year in the postseason prove that. I'm excited to see what Edmonton will do to try and help McDavid and the team get to where they want to be, but all I know is that this guy is way too good not to win a Stanley Cup within the next 2 to 3 years. I don't know if there's ever been a player this fast with the hands and finishing ability that he possesses, and he's a threat literally anytime he's on the ice, whether it's to score or set up a teammate, because he draws so much attention to himself, which can leave teammates wide open for easy goals on a regular basis. It's no secret that McDavid is one of the greatest talents the game of hockey has ever seen, and he's certainly lived up to the hype so far. So when will he take his team to the next level and become even more of a legend than he already is?